picture, but for various reasons, it's best to do it this way. I want to welcome everybody to tonight's emergency meeting. Only the American people can end this war. Declare America's independence from the Epstein War Party. We know that you wouldn't be here if you were not interested in what you can do to stop our descent into what could become even a thermonuclear conflict, not only in Iran, not only in Ukraine, but in the whole world. And we, the people, can stop this. We have many speakers tonight, and we are featuring in particular Jose Vega, candidate for Congress from the poorest congressional district in America, the 15th congressional district in the Bronx. And so this is an emergency forum being hosted by the independent candidate for president of the United States, Diane Sare. This past week, the United States Congress failed to uphold their duties to the United States Constitution regarding the lawful waging of war. And the recent assassination of Ayatollah Khamenei in Iran meant that we had left now the realm of geopolitics and entered the realm of religious war. One analyst spoke about this with unusual clarity this past Saturday, Professor Zhang.
You know, they're trying to achieve something that they have lost it long before. And they're trying to reestablish the mindset I'm talking. It's not the reality, but the mindset in Washington is the same as it was during those days with the British CIA intelligence trying to make a coup d'etat against the government and putting some other people in the place of them without changing that much the whole system.
Okay, I will say this. Whatever you believe about what is happening, whatever you believe will happen, will be completely wrong. Whatever happened in the past will not apply to what's going to happen right now. This is a unique war. This is something that we cannot use history, the lens of history, to understand. Okay? You go back to the Russia-Ukraine war. I still don't understand why this war is still going on. Russia won this war about 2 years ago. The Ukrainians have lost about 1 million fighting age men. Now they are dragging elderly men, kidnapping them, and putting them on the battlefield. A third of the country has already fled Ukraine. I don't understand why this war is still going on.
He went on to say that the framework I think you have to use is eschatological or religious. They're doing this not to win wars, to control resources, to obtain oil, or to control trade routes. They're doing this for religious purposes, to achieve a certain world that they believe will reflect the divine will of God. Now, these religious forces are not exactly sane, whether we're talking about Christian Zionists or we're talking about the Zionists of Israel. And here's a video recently shared by George Galloway, who was so amazed by it. He simply asked the question, is anybody watching this?
The Christians evangelists here in America, which almost all of them are Republicans, they're probably all going to vote for Trump, and they are very pro-Israel. They are the ones that, thanks to them, United States always been with Israel in the last few decades. If you take out Christianity out of the picture, what United States had to do with Israel? The only things they are helping us is because of religion reason. But what a lot of Jews do not know is that they're not doing it for us. They are doing it only for themselves. Make no mistake. They all believe that once we will go back to the Holy Land and J.C. Penney will show up to redeem the world, he will put us all to be burned in hell. That's what they believe, because we never accepted him, and we won't accept him. So why they want to help us to take over Israel, to win against the Arabs, make sure the Jews go? Why they pay all these organizations that sponsor Aliyah? A lot of the people who made Aliyah, it's Christian money. All their affair, it's all come from them. There's some Reform rabbis who have connection with them. They get hundreds of millions of dollars donation from them. Rabbis from Manhattan, from Texas. Why they are so generous? Why are they donating money to Israel? What do they care about Israel? The answer is because they believe the Messiah would come. They just have the wrong identity of the Messiah. That's it. They believe that it's actually JC. They never watch my debate with a Christian professor. They would watch it quickly. They would dump all the Christian symbols, you know where, because it would be so obvious that it's all fake.
Now, this is an emergency forum, as we said. This is being hosted by the independent candidate for president of the United States, Diane Sare, who is a supporter of Jose Vega. We want to thank everybody and thank Diane for doing this. But weeks ago, she said that one of the core planks in her independent presidential platform was going to be make crazy, crazy again. And that's one of the reasons that so many members of the Veterans Intelligence Professionals for Sanity have worked with Diane and Jose over the recent years. We'll be hearing from a few of them tonight. In fact, I understand we have a couple of surprise guests for tonight. But, you know, if everything we think is wrong, we have to change the whole way we think to figure our way out of this situation. How are we supposed to do that? Well, let's use the example of Jose Vega in a recent confrontation he had with Richie Torres in the Bronx.
Let me tell you something. You know, what is it about you and endless war? You just seem to love war, whether it's Ukraine, whether it's Gaza, you know, the thousands of dead Palestinian children that you funded. You know, don't you think that that's crazy? The crown prince of genocide is here, thinking he can just get away by sitting here and eating comfortably while there are thousands of Palestinian children who have to suffer because of the decisions of this guy.
For them. You're a disgrace. You're a disgrace to your constituency. You should resign.
So that's the way that America can take back its government. And that's the way that we're going to have to inspire Americans all over the country through independent candidacies, largely, to decide that the Epstein class will be overthrown. And we need your help to take a giant step forward in that fight to return self-government to the people of the United States. Jose is right now involved, for all that may not know this, a petitioning drive. We've got another 10 days to complete the first phase of this. This gives us our ballot access. What that would mean is that Jose Vega will be able to confront Richie Torres, not just in a restaurant in front of a few people, but if we do this properly, on television and in the Democratic debates. We need about $30,000 in total to complete that. We are going to be raising money. We hope that people during this discussion do that. But we're here for a higher purpose, not than raising money. We think that's very important, and we want to make sure we get someplace with this tonight. But we've got, as everybody knows, a crisis, as was already said earlier, like we have never had before. We want to say that the maximum you can give for the campaign is $3,500 for the campaign, and there are other things that we are, and people can give that in various denominations. But we're going to move on now because I understand Jose would like to say hello to everybody, and he will then introduce our moderator for the night.
Okay. All right, Dennis, are you there and you can hear me okay?
Yeah.
All right, perfect. Yeah, I just wanted to say hello to everyone and thank you all for being on and getting on. We called this emergency town hall, given the situation that's going on in Iran right now, which is becoming, I believe, could become nuclear overnight if the American citizenry decides not to stand up. And I'm a firm believer that the reason why the war could become nuclear is not just because of the administration, which has gone crazy. We all agree on that. It's because of the Americans who are refusing to take a stand while they are just standing by, watching these things happen and not deciding to intervene in the way we have seen people like Tony Aguilar or most recently Brian McGinnis decide to stand up at a hearing and interrupt what is going on and saying there is something much more pressing that needs to be talked about right this minute. And as Dennis Speed said, yes, right now, here in the Bronx, in the poorest congressional district in the country, there is a fight going on right now to put our name on the ballot to debate Richie Torres, one of the most well-funded AIPAC incumbents that the that the United States has ever seen and is completely disgusting. And the fight we're in right now is collecting signatures to get our name, the Vega for Congress name, on the ballot as an alternative to war with Iran, which Richie Torres supports, and an alternative to genocide, which he also supports. So I'm very proud to be joined by my friends and special guests who decided to come on, who are also running, by the way, in their respective districts. But I just want to give you all a thanks again. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to introduce Garland Nixon, who will then introduce Tony Aguilar. Garland, please, if you're there, take it away. Go ahead.
All right. Hopefully I'm unmuted.
You are
thanks
unmuted.
a lot. Yeah, great, wonderful. Thanks a lot, everybody. Very important meeting. We got a lot of great guests here. I see Brian McGinnis, as a lot of people know. I've been talking about the absolutely embarrassing incident in which he was attacked and beaten by members of Congress here recently. So we've got a lot of great guests, a lot of things going on here. So everybody stick around. Look, if you're watching right now, I see we've got a bunch of people watching. I don't know how many on my channel. I see 367. Everybody, if you have X or YouTube, Facebook or whatever, I'm asking everybody who's out there watching this to just click the URL at the top and share this or you can just click share. Make sure you share this on all your social media platforms while you're watching it so other people will get a chance to check it out. All right, we're going to start off with another young man who's has aspirations for Congress, and this is great. We have to see some people who are willing to push back against the machine, some people who are willing to stand up for peace, out here talking, out here doing the heavy lifting, and we're going to start off with the one and only Anthony Aguilar. Anthony, thank you very much.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here on with everybody, and it's good to see you again, Brian. Glad you're out.
Thank you so much.
I've been having discussions about this very issue with the war that we're seeing, and I had the chance to speak with Professor Young yesterday on George Galloway's show and hear his predictive history and his predictive analysis. And I think that what the world can now see is that this war was started on false pretense. It was started in a way that it's not based on just war or a just war theory. It's based on ego, resources, namely oil, and oligarchy. And if you look at even now, we're 10 days into this war, and we still have not had from the President of the United States as the Commander in Chief, the Secretary of Defense or Secretary of War, as he calls himself, Secretary of State or other secretaries within the cabinet as to why we are fighting this war, other than, which has been made clear by many, because we're fighting for Israel. We're fighting this war for Israel, to the point where even Secretary Hegseth said, basically a report to the American people that he addressed directly to Israel saying, your war is going great. We're fighting your war exactly as planned. So that should be very concerning to the American people. And I think that it is very concerning to the American people. And here we are today. The President of the United States is now looking for a delusional exit, which will not be feasible. He's already talking about, well, we're gonna put a nice little bow on this by sending in special operations, special forces and rangers and explosive ordnance disposal and specialists to retrieve the nuclear material from these deeply underground bunkers, and or that then we're going to completely take over the Strait of Hormuz, so Iran can't influence that international commerce. Two things of which are impractical and cannot be achieved. To send in ground forces into Iran will be an embarrassment. It'll be very deadly. I know this for fact because I was involved in con planning, contingency planning, and operational planning when we were looking at the Iran situation and North Korea, both knowing that they maintain their nuclear capability and or ballistic capability underground in bunkers. And we looked at this hard target or this subterranean target set, and it's near impossible. And when you consider that, when you're also fighting an active enemy and you do not have air superiority, which we do not, despite what Hegseth has said, we don't, it makes for a very deadly situation. So I pray that the president of the United States does not order a ground attack, but it seems like that's becoming more and more likely as his desperation to tie this up becomes ever more clear to the American public. And I think every American now is kind of scratching their head and asking, what are we really fighting this war for, other than Israel, which has been clearly stated to us, but for what other reason? What does it achieve? And we see now, I don't know if anyone listened to General Mark Milley. General Mark Milley was the former chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, of whom Trump had some friction with. He served Trump, but then afterwards, they had friction. He even called Trump a pseudo wannabe dictator. But he is in the Middle East. He's in the area because he's now doing contracting and consulting work. And he has even reported back and saying that, every U.S. base in that region has been struck and struck hard. And we're seeing U.S. forces pulling back out of these locations. So if we were to snap the chalk line right now and say conflict is over, what have we achieved other than dead Americans, many, many dead Iranians, no change to the government if that was the objective. In fact, the Ayatollah and the government continue. No uprising of the people, bombing children, schools, oil refineries, burning the streets of Tehran, and oil is certainly not liberating the people. So that's not going to fly. So what is it? So I think in these desperate days where we see the president is desperately seeking an exit strategy, Israel has been pummeled. It's interesting that the CENTCOM commander says that we've destroyed all of their missile capability as Tel Aviv continues to get hit with missiles. So as we approach that line of desperation, based on what we've also seen with the United States deploying certain capabilities into the region, certain nuclear capabilities, could that open up the door for the use of a nuclear weapon, tactical nuclear weapon, which doesn't have as much of a high yield, but it's still nonetheless a nuclear weapon? It crosses that threshold. I think that this president is that irresponsible and that egotistic. And I think that Netanyahu is that desperate and has that much influence over the president to convince him to do so. And then as this continues, the United States is also going to have to address the issue with the Tomahawk strike on the girls' school in the opening days of the war. That's something that the world is not going to forget. So what that really shows to the American people right now is that, especially as we go into the midterms with those that are gathered here today in their various capacities, is that Americans want change. And Americans aren't going to go to the polls and simply vote for the same old business. They want change. And we're demonstrating that change. We're demonstrating change for no more endless wars. And how do you stop those endless wars? Well, you stop being bought off by people and you stop putting the interests of the oligarchs and the rich first and put the needs of the people first. And I think more than ever, especially, it's sad to say, because I never want to think of American soldiers being killed, but I think that the death toll is far higher than the 8 that we have been told. And if this ground incursion or if this conflict continues, that death toll will increase exponentially. You have a lot of veterans on this panel. You have myself, Josie, Brian, those of us that have served in combat and know the cost of war. And I think there's a lot of information that this administration is not sharing with the American people that, quite frankly, when it is known, the casualties, the cost, that Americans are going to resist and revolt against it. And hopefully they demonstrate that revolt in the ballot box and in the voting in the midterms, because we can change it. We have the right people. We have the right people stepping up to selflessly serve. And I hope that the American people see that they have options and they have choices with good, patriotic Americans that want to serve the nation. Thank you.
All right, thanks a lot, Anthony. And before you go, and I apologize because, you can help us out. Start by letting everybody know Anthony is running for office. Let everybody know where you're running and your website, how they can contact you.
Oh, thank you for that opportunity. So I am running for the U.S. Congress for North Carolina District 13, and you can follow me on social media or at my campaign website, Aguilar for U.S. Congress. And on the website, you'll find I'm running Green Party, and there you can find my priorities, but you can also find opportunities to donate, volunteer, and help. But more importantly, the most important thing anyone can do is spreading the word. And I think what's important to me, looking at the numbers, we just finished the primaries here. I mean, obviously nationwide, but here in North Carolina, in this district particularly, of which I am running, which includes 8 counties, of which one that I live in here in Harnett County, but 775,000 live here in District 13. And in that, the Republican incumbent, Brad Knott, kept his seat as the Republican candidate going into the general election with 44,000 votes. And Behringer, the Democrat who held his position as the Democratic nominee, won that with 29,000 votes. We can blow this away in the general. I know that we can. I know that there are more Americans out there that are going to go to the ballot box that want change. So when I see these numbers and see how they retained and or got their seat, Republican, Democrat, going into the general, we can win this. We absolutely can win this. So for everyone out there in District 13 or not, need your support, spreading the word, and having faith and knowing that third-party candidates, Green Party, independents, that we are not spoilers, we are enhancers, and we're going to make this election better.
Thank you very much. Next, coming up, we have Brian McGinnis, and a lot of people who are watching this will be familiar with Brian. I'm sure many of you who watch my channel saw the video that Scott Ritter and I discussed it. I think it got over 100,000 views. Very, very popular video, and we discussed it and we showed what happened where a Marine. A man who has, worked hard to earn the title of Marine and to earn his rank, and stood up for what he believed in Congress. He was grabbed and literally attacked and injured by a member of Congress. It was an absolute disgrace for the here in the United States. But that's where we are today. But we have good news. And that is that Brian's right here with us right now. He's got an injury, but it seems to be on the mend. And Brian, if you could give people just a brief, very short couple sentence bio of yourself, and then let us know where you're running, and then we'll let's hear what you have to say.
You got it, Garland. Thank you so much, Mr. Nixon. My name is Brian McGinnis. I'm running for the National Senate seat in North Carolina to replace Tom Tillis. Here's my cast. I got great care at the George Washington University Hospital, all on the mend. And this is nothing compared to the dangers we're facing with what we're talking about and discussing. And it's all worth the fight. And I've had incredible feedback on my website and things from American people who are so hungry for a change. And it is overwhelming. So the fact that we are all here and in position to take that change and do something with it is great.
Thank you very much. Certainly appreciate it. And and what's your website again, Brian?
It's brianmcginnis.com, and that's my website.
All right, everybody, brianmcginnis.com. You saw what happened, but the most important part of what happened is what Brian said. It was that he stood up and he said what he believed in. And, the attack on him, I think, was kind of like the Streisand effect. They thought they were going to attack him and they were just going to throw him out of Congress. And what they did was they drew attention, not just to Brian, but they drew attention to what he was saying. They drew attention to the reality that we have a lot of men and women who are in uniform, who were formerly in uniform also, and who are standing up against what they see as this absolutely unquestionable international crime and a very, very dangerous situation where they're putting the American people and people of the world at risk of some kind of a nuclear confrontation. Clearly, we see that, they're bringing it up on the news. They're bringing it up reporting on the Washington Post, Russia is involved. Well, okay, the United States is in proxy wars, Russia's involved, but that just means that there's nuclear powers are involved in proxy wars. This is very, very dangerous. Next, let's see who we got next. Next, we got a lot of people here. Oh my gosh. Well, Scott's not here right now, so we're going to Diane Sare, the next president of the United States. I wish I had like the pomp and circumstance, but we don't have that. But don't worry, you better get ready for it, Diane Sare, because it's coming.
Great. Well, thank you very much. And I'll just say Scott wrote in, there's a little medical issue in his household that he's dealing with, so hopefully he'll be here as soon as he can. I know Dennis Speed said this already, but I want to say this very clearly because it really has to sink in. Last week, both houses of Congress in the majority voted to abdicate one of their primary responsibilities, which is the question of whether the nation goes to war. And the idea that a majority of both houses does not intend to do the job for which they ran for office means that every single one of them needs to be out. It also means that we have a problem in that we don't have appropriate checks and balances because one entire branch, the legislative, basically said, don't count on us. We're not part of the government anymore. So I want that to really sink in, and that has to do with why it is so important that you have candidates here for the midterms. Now, everyone may or may not be aware that apparently President Trump requested to have a phone conversation with President Putin this afternoon. It lasted for about an hour, and they clearly disagree. This is the Russian readout. They say the Russian president expressed a number of considerations aimed at a speedy political and diplomatic settlement of the Iranian conflict, including taking into account the contacts held with leaders of the Persian Gulf countries, with the president of Iran, Pezeshkian, and others. In turn, the US president gave his assessment of the developing situation in the context of the ongoing American-Israeli operation. In other words, they did not agree. They each gave their assessment. The Russian Ushakov, who is the presidential aide, said, I note that a very substantive and I believe useful exchange of views took place on this matter. I would urge people to be mature in your thinking about this. I know that we have, what's happened in the world is causes enormous anguish and grief. The death of maybe 250,000 or 500,000 Palestinians when you actually get under the rubble, murdered before the eyes of the world. The war, we don't know how many Iranians have been killed. We don't know how many Americans have been killed. We don't know how many Israelis have been killed. We're in the fog of war. But you cannot take a hot-headed approach. People get very enraged. Why didn't Putin do X? And Putin, a few months ago, gave a speech, which I thought was extremely important, where he said, look, I'm the president of a nuclear superpower. When I act, I have to consider the effect on numerous governments and numerous situations, and sometimes I have to conclude, gut-wrenching though it is, that the most prudent course of action is not to act. So he is walking a tightrope. I imagine to myself that for Putin and Xi Jinping and other world leaders who are sane, they are, in a sense, clenching their teeth and saying to themselves, Can we prevent the world from going past the point of no return into what Tony just described, perhaps the use of a so-called tactical nuke, or Israel using a nuclear bomb, where suddenly nothing can be reversed? Can we somehow keep this infant with a nuclear bomb under control until something changes in the United States? That is our job. I have thought various presidents of our republic were horrible, were criminal, were treasonous. Bush, Obama, others, this one, Biden. However, if someone invaded the United States to remove our president, I would fight, because it's a question of our nation and our sovereignty. So nations which respect principles of international law are not going to run around ordering what should be done. But the American people must know, and it is for us to change this. Someone pointed out today that if the balance between Republicans and Democrats remains close, it may or may not, but it could be that only 5 non-Republican and Democrat candidates getting elected in the House would remove the majority from both parties. And that would mean that those independents would be the most powerful people in the Congress. So it is urgent that we fight now. There are special elections. The special election to replace Marjorie Taylor Greene is tomorrow. The primary, it's an open race, and then 2 people will run off if no one has over 50%. That's tomorrow. I heard a report from a candidate there, and we are under incredible war from the media and the social media. So don't believe whatever they tell you the American people think. Of interest, a candidate I know, Rob Ruskowski, who's running for Marjorie Taylor Greene's seat, said that he took his literature. Donald Trump was in the district, and he wanted to get out his literature to the thousands of people that he was sure were going to show up to hear Trump at the, I think it's Rome, Georgia steel plant. He got there. There were fewer than 100 people. That's what a hardcore Trump district thinks of Trump now. You will not see that on X. You will not see that on Truth Social, but you saw it there. He saw it. He was there. And you may notice you didn't hear about the big Trump rally in Georgia, did you? Because it didn't happen. Finally, I'll just say that we are in a paradigm shift. Centuries of an imperial system that treats human beings as animals, with some born to rule and others born to serve, is at its end. It is bankrupt. It is finished. All they have left is terror and force. There is a new system coming into being, and they are determined to stop it. And that's what this is about. And it takes various forms. And I do just want to say one thing, because this pseudo-religious idea where you have people running around like Trump's so-called religious advisor, Paula White, so speaking in tongues, rolling in the aisle, and holding onto their crotch, is not Christianity. This is the Epstein class. And there is a great difference between that kind of religion and the religion, say, of Albert Einstein, who said, the more I learn about the universe, the incredible order, the balance, the proportion of the planets and physical processes, the more I know that there is a creator. That is a humble scientific approach versus an insane and satanic and degenerate approach. So what you do, what we do matters, and don't count on so-called Washington. It is up to the citizens right now.
Dennis Speed is. We may have Dennis.
Yeah, we want to. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
All right, very good. Well, we want to first of all thank everybody that's on. I understand there are about 1,000 people on watching right now, and I want to say the following because various people are asking about what should be done. That's all. That's what we're about here. First of all, we have independent candidates. What should happen is the United States should see an efflorescence, a rebirth of what people have often too disparagingly talked about around the civil rights movement. It is possible to have nonviolent direct action in this country, which is more powerful than any military force. Why? Because the citizens of the United States have more power than any citizens in human history. Our biggest problem in America is the absence of the fourth branch of government, which is the people. Now, do not expect the people to get up and act on their own. They will not do that. They have to have warriors. Notice Tony Aguilar already spoke here. Brian McGinnis has already spoken here. We're going to have Josephine, I think, was with us as well. Jagobo. These are people who understand combat and understand that now there's another kind of combat they've got to fight in this country with these citizens. For example, personally, I'm speaking personally here, I don't see why anybody is going to college right now at all. Everybody should be out on the street and opposing this because you are losing your Congress. Tonight, people want to know, what can I do? You do something right now. There's 1,000 people on. If 1,000 people gave $100 for the Vega campaign, let me tell you what goes on there. The center of what people call the Israeli lobby is located in that district, located in Riverdale. It's an operation, which I won't go through all the details of it, but it's a very particular political action committee. And every year, when there is a lobby organized in Washington of 1,000 people that goes down to Washington to do explicitly the lobbying, it all comes from that district. That's why Richie Torres, of course, is owned by the people in the district there. It's not the only people. It's not only, but you see, when we say Zionist lobby or Israeli lobby, that's not necessarily people who are Jewish. That's these crazy Christian Zionists. A lot of them are the old time Klans people. That's what that is that you're looking at. And so if you want to see something happen, you saw already, Jose has made very clear, interventions. Brian McGinnis was intervening. Tony Aguilar, he's been to Congress. He gets up, he intervenes. Diane Sare, she gets up, she intervenes. That's just like what went on in this country in the 1960s when people they might have been sitting at a lunch counter, or they might have been doing some other kind of a thing, or campaigning for the right to vote or riding on a bus. Yeah, because that was a very specific case in the South, which involved a very specific set of transgressions. Our time is not like that. In this time, what we have to do, this is the 250th year of this country, and this country is about to disappear unless people get up on their hind legs and fight, but not by going and getting a gun and running around with an AR-15. No, that's stupid. What we need to do is we need to have candidates that are independent, that are financed, that are supported. And if you think that the bottomless pockets of Elon Musk or somebody else make a difference, it's exactly the opposite. If there were really people who really dynamically decided that they were going to actually read the Declaration of Independence and act on it right now in this country, people all over the world, first of all, would actually be very grateful, because a lot of people are trying to defend the United States right now, and they're getting very little help from this country, from the top of the country. We can't expect that. It's got to come from the fourth branch of government, and that's us. But we need money. We need volunteers for Jose's campaign. If 1,000 people gave $100, that's $100,000. I mean, right there, that's the kind of thing it's church board. People can get 100, people can give 1,000. You can give to any candidate also. That's why we're asking these candidates to say where they're, the districts they're running in, and we're going to come back to them in a little bit. But I just wanted to say that because people are asking that question. Well, what do you want to do? That's what you can do immediately. You can go out and you can intervene. These people will help you. We're putting their information in the chat. So let's have the understanding that that is what this call is about. This is about action, and action now.
All right. Thank you very much. And of course, for
Pardon,
those of
Garland, just one thing. Your volume is a little low. Could you increase it a little bit?
yes, I could. I can turn up the gain. Oops. How about now? Better?
That's better. Thank
All
you.
right. Yeah, oh yeah, I had a guest the other day with low volume and I had to kind of match it so we could get the people were complaining. All right, let's get back to important stuff. One of our favorite channels is Do Dissidents. And we've got with us now one of the big guys, one of the big guys in the a real mover and shaker now in the alternative media verse, a person that is funny, is knowledgeable, and very, very talented, and really stands for good stuff all the time. One of my favorite shows is Do Dissidents, and the co-host is Keaton Weiss. Keaton, welcome.
Thank you, Garland. Thanks everybody for being here. Great to see you all. So yeah, thanks Jose for inviting me to be a part of this. So glad I could be here with all you. It's a great honor as always. There's a saying that's been getting a lot of play lately online on the internet. You may be familiar with it. It's no matter who you vote for, you get Jeffrey Epstein. That maybe I'm getting one of the words wrong there, but that's more or less it. No matter who you vote for, you get Jeffrey Epstein. Today, there was a poll released by NPR, which showed support among Americans for the war in Iran at just 36%. Now, that same polling outfit did a poll of Israelis, and turns out 82% of Israelis support the Iran war. So at that point, it's perfectly reasonable to ask who our government actually represents. That's not anti-Semitic. It's not a conspiracy theory. It's a perfectly rational question to ask. If 80% of Israelis want our government to do something that only 36% of Americans support, but our government goes ahead and does it anyway, it's a simple matter of logic that you'd conclude, based on that information, that our government is more or less occupied. If not actually occupied, it may as well be. And so given that, you begin to wonder whether or not it's worthwhile to participate in democracy at all. In other words, why vote if no matter who you vote for, you get Jeffrey Epstein? And if you ask why vote, then you have to ask why run. And if you ask why run, then of course you have to ask yourselves, what the hell are we all doing here right now? And if your options at the ballot box are, say, Richie Torres versus an equally odious Republican with no chance to win anyway, then I'd agree the exercise of voting in that circumstance seems pretty pointless. But, as someone who does talk politics for a living, I, of course, still believe in the power of speech and debate and discourse. And yes, the democratic process, as impotent as it seems right now. If I didn't believe any of this meant anything, I'd be a hypocrite to earn my living talking about it. So I have to believe in the wisdom of crowds and in the power of people through the exercise of their democratic rights to influence the world around them for the better. So, in other words, even though there are specific instances where I might not see any point in voting for certain candidates, I still believe in the potential for positive change through democratic means. And yes, of course, as I think a lot of people are feeling watching this and even participating in this, perhaps, that belief in the ability of the public to influence policy is really being put to the test right now as the Trump administration just sticks their thumb in the eye of even their own voters on issue after issue, culminating in, of course, the biggest betrayal of all, this horrific Iran war. But once again, if we look at each other, at our fellow Americans, and realize that we're mostly on the same page about something like this, then we're kind of forced to believe in our ability to make our will present itself through political participation. And so in this case, where there is a candidate in the race worth supporting, and I speak not only for Jose, but for Diane and Anthony Aguilar and Brian, of course, I think there's damn good reason to be here tonight. What impressed me about Jose from the time I first interviewed him, which was just a couple days after his viral protest action at the AOC town hall in 2022, was his appreciation for discussion. He has a sort of a reverence for reason and persuasion as a powerful vehicle for change. Even though he went viral screaming at a politician, when you talk to him one-on-one, he's really anything but hostile. He's the opposite of belligerent and confrontational. He exudes, I think, a very genuine commitment to what I hesitate to call Enlightenment values, since there's a tinge of sort of Western chauvinism about that, I think, especially at a time when the West is acting in a way that's anything but enlightened. But his background in classical culture, the way he talks about classical culture, love of music, love of poetry, love of art, suggests he is truly enlightened in the truest and best sense of the word, and that he is simply very pro-human. And if you're pro-human, then I think you have to also believe in the power of human communication. And I think you therefore have to believe that violence, be it war or genocide, or even the kind of acts of random violence that are characteristic of civil unrest or social collapse, that unfortunately we're seeing more and more of now, that violence represents a squandering of human potential and therefore a sort of failure of humanity to realize itself. And not to put words in Jose's mouth, because God knows there's no shortage of words that come out of that mouth. But I always glean from talking to him that he really not only believes that, but he walks the walk for his beliefs in that. You know, his protests can be loud and they can be boisterous and they can even be disruptive, but they've never been violent. And they're always done for the purpose of igniting conversation and debate. And so in a more formal setting, i.e. a debate stage, he would dominate someone like Richie Torres just as hard as he could in a potential protest action. Because Jose believes in the power of debate, the power of democracy. That's why his YouTube channel is called Declaring Independence. And shameless plug here, but the reason we on our show use a parchment paper background for the Due Dissidence channel is a nod to the Declaration of Independence. And when we first set our logo up, but we didn't know what the hell we were doing, we used a font that mimicked the handwriting on the Declaration of Independence. And so we sort of, I think, share a sort of reverence for that tradition. And so these are obviously very dark times, and it is tempting in dark times to succumb to dark thoughts about the futility of this kind of engagement and activism and running for office. But I think you have to kind of go step by step and ask yourself, well, do you still want a better future? And if you do, it must be because you haven't given up on humanity. And if you haven't given up on humanity, then you haven't given up on humanity's greatest power, which is the power of communication. And if you believe in the power of communication, then you must also believe in the power of persuasion and the power of organization around mutually held beliefs and values. And that's a power that we still have as human beings, no matter how dark things get. No one can take that power away from us. We can only forfeit it once we convince ourselves it isn't actually real. And once we do that, it's game over. But until we do that, it isn't. And so let's not give up. You know, don't give up on yourselves. This is why Jose's rallying cry is always for you to declare your independence, to assert your own humanity and insist that your humanity has power. And so let's try and flex some power and do what we can to get Jose over the finish line. And the same goes for all the other independent candidates that are here tonight. It's a great honor to be with you as always. So thanks so much for having me.
All right, Keaton Weiss, co-host of Due Dissidence. Thanks a lot, Keaton. All right, next, I understand we have someone who has a letter to the Pope.
Yes.
I
Hi.
don't mean to intervene. I just want to say, Keaton, thank you. That was very touching, and I really appreciated that a lot. It's not my turn to speak, so I'm sorry, but I go after this anyway.
No problem. I won't even make a wisecrack at you now. I won't even deflate you by making fun of you now. Yeah. I'll let you ride that. I'll let you enjoy that. Yeah.
So there's a number of initiatives that have been taken up. Hi, I'm Anastasia Battle. I'm the co-initiator of the International Peace Coalition. I also work very closely with Diane Sare as her campaign manager, and I'm good friends with Jose Vega. And I want to read to you, there's an important letter that is being pulled together, which is going to the Pope. And as we've discussed so far in this meeting, I'm sure many of you have read this, but the leaders in the United States, many military leaders in the United States, are saying that we need to go to war with Iran because we need to fulfill the Armageddon prophecy. And this is absolutely insane. And the idea that we do not have a separation of church and state at this point is absolutely this is an incredibly horrible situation to be in. It's very irrational. So we need to turn to leaders like the Pope. We need to turn to important imams. We need to turn to various priests and other leaders around the world in order to respond to this fanaticism and assert their moral leadership. So I want to read to you this letter. This is titled, Kynan, you can bring this up on there. It's from the Schiller Institute to His Holiness Pope Leo XIV. Holy Father, I'm writing you at this grave hour of mankind, since you may be the only person left who could hopefully avoid a descent into what you yourself called an irreparable abyss, an escalation of the unprovoked war against Iran into potentially a global nuclear war, which would end all life on Earth. In the recent period, the world has entered a radically worse phase, where international law has been declared non-existent. The so-called rules-based order declared as always having been a charade, and the principle of might makes right is being elevated to the privilege of the powerful. As a result, billions of people are already suffering the dramatic worsening of their living conditions. Countless people are already paying with their lives. But still worse, if the present course of events is not changed, the ultimate sin may be committed, the annihilation of the human species for the sake of satanic delusions. Millions of ordinary people are asking in total despair, what can be done to change the course of history when many governments, especially in the West, are obviously incapable of fulfilling their obligation to avoid damage to the people they are responsible for? Where are the institutions that can bring the remedy at this late hour? Something that could be a positive, maybe even the decision step to arouse the consciousness of the world would be, in the spirit of the Council of Florence and the unity of the Church brought about by Nicholas of Cusa, bringing the the delegations of the Orthodox Church to the councils of Florence and Ferrara, that you, Your Holiness, and Patriarch Kirill of Moscow, as well as Patriarch Bartholomeus I of Constantinople, would take the courageous step and call together for all religious leaders of the world, as well as all people of good faith, believers and non-believers alike, to step forward in defense of peace. On October 25th last year, in your Angelus sermon, you invoked the great philosopher and Cardinal Nicholas of Cusa and his notion on the coincidia oppositorum as the necessary method of thinking to bind things together in the world today. It was the same method of thinking which underlay his beautiful dialogue De Pace Fidei about peace and faith, which he wrote in answer to the fall of Constantinople, uplifting the thinking of the people of his time to the highest possible level, including the understanding that there is only one God and one truth, knowable to the believers of all faiths, despite their distinct rites and practices. At a time when there is danger of a world war, and when some of us use the cloak of religion to argue for an early Armageddon, that same voice of reason must be raised and the same question asked, like the representatives of 17 nations and religions asked God in De Pace Fidei, that it cannot be the people kill each other in the name of God. The bells of all churches should begin to ring. The adhan of all mosques should be shouted. The shofar of the synagogue should be blown in the whole world in this moment of utmost urgency to save mankind from its final tragedy. If, as a first step, the churches of the West and the East would unite and campaign actively and daily for world peace, this could affect the majority of people to express their commitment for peace and thus cause a change in world history and fulfill the will of God, who for sure did not create the world and gift humanity with reason to have it destroy by the lack of it. So I want to share this letter with people. I know there are many people who have joined us today who are religious in whatever capacity they are, but there's also religious leaders who have joined us on this meeting today. So I'll be sure to share this PDF with folks. We are getting this letter to the Pope tomorrow. We'd like people to sign it. We'll have a place for people to sign it very, very soon. I'll leave my email in there if you're interested in signing it.
Outstanding. Oh, am I unmuted? I'm unmuted, right? All
Yes,
right,
we can hear you.
outstanding. That's excellent. Everybody's doing really good work here. And we've got to do every little thing we can. We've got to take every opportunity to, contact important people because we are seeing a humiliation for a nuclear power. A nuclear power has attacked another country and they are facing the humiliation of defeat. And we certainly know that when an irrational empire is facing defeat, that any outcome and any potential is possible. And we've got to all do the work we have to make sure that we have some input and we get this thing under control. Next, we've got a guy that's running for office in New York. He's running against Richie Torres. He does lots of good stuff. Everybody knows him from the interventions, humiliating and embarrassing AOC and Richie Torres and many other evildoers, to quote George W. Bush. It's Jose Vega. Jose.
All righty. Garland, thank you. I want to thank all of my friends, Keaton, Diane, Anastasia, Dennis, and the fellow interventionists as well, Tony, Brian, Josephine Gilbo, who we'll be hearing from shortly. I want to thank all of you for taking the time to get on this Monday night, and I want to thank the audience as well. I understand we have over 1,000 people watching right now from many different audiences right now, whether you first found me from Due Dissidence, almost 4 years ago, or you're tuning in live from Garland Nixon's live stream, or because you were excited to know that Brian would be on tonight. I want to thank all of you. What we are doing here together as a whole is, I think, indicative of what Friedrich Schiller said, which is that a great evil provokes an even greater good, right? I believe that mankind is destined for that which is greater, and we will not succumb to evil, and we will not succumb to the satanic forces that believe that mankind is an animal. I truly believe that every human being is created in the living image of the Creator, and that sanctity and that dignity that is guaranteed to every human life must be preserved and must be fought for. And we saw that exemplified through the interventions of people like Brian and Tony and Josie and everybody else who's ever stood up and intervened, to the candidates who are running independent campaigns, who are running insurgent campaigns, who understand that something must be done. And that maybe they could or maybe they couldn't do a better job than other people running for Congress, but they know they have to do it because it's right. And they know that the person who is occupying their seat, who is quote unquote representing them, has got to go. And it is their responsibility to stand up and say, well, you know what? I might not be qualified, but I know damn well you are not qualified. And that's why I'm standing up and challenging you. That is one of the points of the candidacies. And for those of you and for the young people who are on tonight too, we have people who intern on our campaign who are high schoolers. They aren't old enough to run for federal office, but they can intervene. They can stand up at city council meetings, congressional town halls, assembly member meetings. They can stand up anywhere and tell the truth. There is never a wrong time to tell the truth. I've been doing interventions now for over 5 years. I first confronted Kamala Harris on asking her, why does the Bronx look the way it does? I confronted Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez for supporting the war in Ukraine, demanding that she use her big voice to speak out on the truth as to why this war really started. And just 10 days after October 7th, I stood up in a synagogue, Temple Emmanuel, where Rachel Maddow herself was speaking. And I stood up and I said, there's an ethnic cleansing in Gaza, and you and the rest of the media are going to lie about it. That was 10 days after October 7th, in a room full of 2,000 people that I knew would be hostile to me. And I stood up and I told the truth, not for some self-gain thing, not for some vanity thing, because other people need to stand up and tell the truth right now. And here we are yet again in a situation that could become nuclear. And I keep saying this every single day, overnight. I'm sure, like many of you, have heard the reports that there are nuclear tactical bombers that are flying over Iran right now. I don't know the veracity of these reports. I've also heard reports of soldiers calling their mothers and their loved ones before their phones were being taken away, telling them that a boots on the ground invasion is coming and that this may be the last time they speak to them. Again, I don't know the veracity of these reports. I can't verify them myself, but the likelihood that these things are true, and just the chance that they could be true, demands that every single American put down whatever form of entertainment keeps their mind occupied and distracted, whatever it is that Americans are doing to distract them from the truth. It's time for them to put that down and decide we have to take a stand. And so whether that's through candidacies, whether that's through interventions, or whether it's through circulating this letter to the Pope that was just read. You know, the United States is the fourth largest population of Catholics in the whole world. There are many people who walk around saying that they are Catholic. Well, what responsibility comes with that faith? And I know that's something that Josephine and others can speak on better than I can. But every single person has a responsibility to act and stand up. And so here we are right now in the Bronx, in the poorest congressional district, where in our way is a man named Richie Torres, who he himself has no real convictions, no principles. Instead, he just gets blank checks written to him from the AIPAC lobby, from the district where AIPAC and NORPAC and all these other Israeli lobby packs, as well as Wall Street and other forms of foreign intelligence through British intelligence, have made a home here in the Bronx, in the poorest congressional district. And Richie Torres is the face of it all. And here we are, collecting the signatures to get our names on the ballot. And we have done something where we have freaked them out utterly. Apart from the fact that they are slandering me by calling me an anti-Semite, by running on the press, different outlets calling me, all kinds of different boogeyman names, whether it's the Jerusalem Post or Times of Israel, saying that, I'm no good for the district and that, I hate my constituents, which are total lies. It's not working. Instead, what we have done in the Bronx, partially because of the support from many of you who have donated, who have volunteered your time on the ground, we have created an effect where we are terrifying the local establishment now. And what they are doing is they are doubling down. They are putting out more people to try and counter our signature gathering ability. They are trying to maintain an inorganic presence, a fake presence of people who are collecting signatures for Torres, who don't even know or don't even care to know who the man actually is. And I have had several conversations with many constituents. At this point, we have knocked on over 3,500 doors in just 12 days, where I am talking to people who did not know who Richie Torres was, had some vague notion of who he was, or in the course of talking to us, realized that Richie Torres and his holding that seat is an illegal occupation of the district. Many people were horrified to find out how much money he takes from AIPAC. Many people were horrified to find out that he is supportive of the war in Iran and regime change. And many people found relief to know that there was somebody who was out there telling them the truth. And that is what your support allows us to do. I am making a plea to help us maintain that momentum going forward. We have a very good stride so far, and we need to double it. And I'm asking if you can help us reach our goal of $30,000 by the end of this week so that we can continue to be the terrifying presence that they do not want right now. Because that is the effect that we have right now. It's not just about the ballot box in June or the respective elections. Look at what people are paying attention to now. The reason why Brian's intervention and the other interventions that have happened in the past got so many views is because the state of mind of many people around the world, not just Americans, is that they want some relief. They want a way out. And there are people standing up right now. And that's what your funds allow us to do, to continue to be that presence right now so that we can secure that debate against Richie Torres so that we can expose him for who he is. I won't need to do a lot of heavy lifting the day I debate him because he will expose himself by just being himself. His ugly, decrepit self and the fact that he stands for nothing is what will be shown that day that I debate him. And we have to get there, and they don't want us to get there. So whatever you can donate, if 1,000 people gave $100, if 100 people gave $1,000, that would help us reach our goal tonight. So whatever you can give, even if it's only $10, $5, whatever you can give to me and also to my fellow candidates here, I encourage you to do so and help us. So I again just want to extend my thanks. I hope that the other speakers have joined soon. And I know Josie is going to be speaking, and I hope that there's time for discussion because I definitely want to hear more from Brian and Tony and others. And the links are in the chat, by the way, and people can go to votevega.nyc if they wish to donate to me. And there are other links in the Zoom chat. So thank you all.
All right. Thank you, Jose Vega. Do we have Dr. Was Dr. Perlmutter available?
He texted me saying the event that he was doing is running over time, so he'll try to get on as soon as possible.
Well, that's okay. That's great. We hope we have him. But right now we have Josephine I know I'm going to screw the name up. Gilbo?
Yeah.
All right,
Gilbo.
Josephine Gilbo. Josephine is a former. She was with the military, and she was an analyst. And she is an expert in cybersecurity and things of that nature. And now she's doing the anti-war thing. She's doing the justice thing. And we are very, very happy to have her here. Josephine.
Thank you for having me. I think it's so important that we sort of talk about our own lived experiences so that people can understand why am I even saying what I'm saying right now. And you may not understand that unless you get a little bit of a backstory. So I'll keep it short just so you can understand who I am. I grew up a very devout Catholic. Catholicism has been in my family since the 1600s. I did not miss church growing up. I didn't actually miss church until I was 28 years old, unless it was an emergency, because that is what was instilled inside of me. I grew up a very Republican. In 2016, was a very strong supporter of Trump. Very conservative. October 7th woke me up to the truth and of what the U.S. imperialism is, what the military industrial complex is. And I swore an oath to defend this country. I swore an oath to defend the people of this country, not the empire, not the Epstein class. And I want to say that Trump has betrayed all of the people who have voted for him because he campaigned on two major things, and that was releasing the Epstein files and no more forever wars. Of both, he has completely failed to do and has betrayed not only the American people, but especially the ones who believe the propaganda that he spilled on his campaign trail. Now, the next thing I want to move into in now understanding where I'm coming from and my background is I have not said this in my 37 years of life and witnessing the genocide for 2+ years. This has not come out of my mouth, but I'm going to say it now, and not to fearmonger, because if you know me, you know I don't work on fear. It's to tell you the truth. We are approaching the possibility of a nuclear war. The United States of America and Israel are considering nuclear war. If you want to get a deeper back dive from a military strategic perspective of that analysis, I suggest you go to Anthony Aguilar's Instagram. He breaks down the steps that have led us and me to say this right now, that we are on the verge of a nuclear war. So while I appreciate that we have medium and long-term goals of electing candidates like Brian, Jose, and Anthony, and Diane into office, we have an immediate concern right now, and we need interventions. And that's what I'm going to talk to you about today, because as you know, I am a strong believer in civil disobedience. I have spent a lot of time since October 7th studying history of how things move the needle. We're talking about from slavery to women's rights, just significant changes from evil that has existed in the world, that has changed through civil disobedience. No one relied on the powers and of leaders. They have betrayed us. We cannot rely on anyone who is in office right now to make a change to stop the potential of a nuclear war. We only can rely on ourselves. And that's why Brian McGinnis is here. He's a friend of mine. I invited him to come on this panel because we need to show you that this is the way out. And so I'm going to talk to you about civil disobedience just so you understand it clearly. And I'm glad, Dennis, earlier you mentioned this isn't about a January 6th insurrection. That's not what's going to actually make a change. Civil disobedience is the active, professed, and nonviolent refusal of citizens to obey certain laws, demands, or commands of a government aimed at influencing policy or inducing social change. It is a deliberate, public, and conscious breach of law, often used to highlight injustice, such as during the civil rights movement or anti-war protests. That is what we need to be doing right now. If you are a part of an organization and you are not actively talking about how you are going to perform civil disobedience or support people like Brian McGinnis, who has a GoFundMe account right now, support people who put their bodies on the line for civil disobedience, then you are wrong. Then you are wrong. That's the conversations that need to be had right now. We are approaching nuclear war. You need to be organizing for civil disobedience. It could be something as simple as sitting in the rotunda of the Capitol, refusing to leave, singing gospel music. That is a form of civil disobedience. And that is what it's going to take for this to stop. The leaders they're not going to care that we're doing that, but what they do care about is their reputation. What they do care about is how they look on an international community level. And Brian McGinnis, his action made it to Australia, made it to the United Kingdom, made it to Russia, made it to South America. That is what they care about. When the international community starts viewing what's going on in our country, and the dissent of the American people, that can change the needle. And so I encourage you to please take note of what we've been doing for over 2 years. Look at the impact that it has had to wake up American people. What Brian McGinnis just did in at least 2-digit percentages has woken up the American population to the reality of what level of fascism that exists right now. Because he was using his First Amendment right of freedom of speech in the people's house, in our house. That is our building, the American people's building, and they broke his arm. A U.S. senator broke his arm. That's the level of fascism that we are at right now. And that needs to be understood down to your core so that you can organize correct. And you can also continue to support these candidates who, in a sense, are putting their bodies on the line, because it is actually dangerous to run as a candidate right now in this climate. So, we watched the genocide for 2.5 years. Don't have our government not only didn't stop it, they funded it. So have no expectation that they plan to stop what is happening right now. Innocents are gonna die. Many innocents have died. The death toll of what they are reporting as far as how many military members have died, they are lying to us. They are absolutely lying to us. And of course, the truth will come out. The balance of power, Diane, you spoke to this. The balance of power is gone. We do not have checks and balances. We have a dictatorship underneath the executive branch, and that is how we are functioning right now. And then finally, as I mentioned before, I don't function on fear because we can't be productive if we're just living in chaos. You can't let the chaos of the world enter into your soul, because you can't be productive living on chaos. And so there's a book, that I often find myself, it's called Finding God in Suffering. And what's interesting about this book is that the chapter called The Problem of Evil specifically starts with the nuclear war in Japan and the bombing of Japan. And I want to read something that this priest talks about. While technology and science can often provide a more humane and sustainable existence, Humanity has not always continued to advance on an ethical level. St. John the Paul II, who witnessed the destruction of his homeland in World War II and lived through its aftermath, speaks of an incomparable accumulation of sufferings, even to the possible self-destruction of humanity. He was referring specifically to the threat of nuclear war, but we can also think about the painful reality of what Pope Francis has referred to as the Third World War fought in pieces. There are so many places in the world today where peace is a far cry from the human experience, and the destruction has wreaked havoc on homeland and family life. So this is where we are. And I just want to encourage you to understand that every single one of us, including Jose, Anthony, me, and Brian, have received nothing but support. Every time we have performed civil disobedience, we have received nothing but absolute community support, whether it's financial, whether it's mental, whatever we needed, the community was there for us. And I'm telling you, anyone listening in the crowd right now that is considering civil disobedience, I'm guaranteeing you and promising you the community will be there to support you. Thank you.
Thank you, Josephine. I believe, I think, am I clear? Yeah. So I believe at this point, Josephine is our last guest. Well, I'll just say a little something on the way out, but I certainly appreciate it. Before we go, let's take one quick last word from Jose and Diane. I mean, we're talking here about what we can do, but let's not forget that Jose and Diane are in fact pushing for office. Jose, you have a few last words.
Yeah, I want to make a few things, and basically just bouncing off of what Josephine had just said. The importance of creative, nonviolent, direct action is that it is a manifestation of truth. And the Declaration of Independence requires these actions of the citizens of the United States. Recently, a man named Dr. Bernard Lafayette passed away, and he was one of Dr. King's major lieutenants during the civil rights era in the 1960s. And I remember, him and I have had many conversations about nonviolent, direct, creative action. I mean, it's one of the things that everybody on this call has done, will do, hopefully, because, you're right, Josie. It's not, and like I said, it's not about the ballot box. My election is not till June and November, and Brian's and Tony's isn't until November either, because they are going to, that's the general election. Who the hell knows what's going to happen between now and next week? So it is important and more imperative than ever that people decide to stand up now and declare their independence, because that is exactly what you do when you decide to do nonviolent direct action. You are declaring your independence from what I call the Epstein class, the people who think that they can just go around and, have their way with the world and, mold society in whatever image they want. And so I just want to definitely echo what you're saying. People should be standing up, intervening right now. And I just want to make a quick point. So far from the donations that have come in towards my campaign, I saw that we have now made, an additional $50, about $500, and that was from 7 people. I want to thank each and every one of you. And I saw in the chat there were a few pledges of people who said they were going to give 100 later. One person from Riverdale. I want to thank all of you for donating, and please continue to do so, and others as well. And please, contribute to Tony, Brian, and Diane, of course. And thank you all. So,
all right, thank you very much. Hey, Diane,
Garland,
Yes.
One other thing, we should let the other people, particularly Tony and Brian, and I think there's some time for some discussion, but Diane may have an idea similar to mine.
Yes, definitely. Absolutely. I'm with you. Diane, you get last words.
Okay, I don't know.
And I don't mean your last words
I hope not. This might be all of our last words, so let's try and be as good as we can. I don't know what exactly Dennis is referring to. I did want to say something, though, because I saw Jeff Young and Kelly Lane, and there's some very good activists on here. If there are candidates on that we missed, would you please put your name and your state and your website in the chat? because people need to know who you are. Also, oh, good. I see Frankie Lozada just posted. He's a candidate for New York 4. Is that the 4th congressional district? That's great. We're in a revolutionary period. And in such a moment, it would be a terrible mistake to think that you know the impact of your action, because you don't. I said the report I got from an eyewitness account in Georgia that less than 100 people showed up to hear Donald Trump at a steel plant. That is not the reflection you get in the news media. I heard, I think it was Marjorie Taylor Greene saying that X has become as much of an pro-Zionist lobby crazy place as the mainstream media. So we tend to act as though we have some idea that we know the impact of our work, or that we know what the American people think. And I suspect that what we are told they think, the environment that's created by social media, mainstream media, and just the so-called culture is not real. And when you have courage to tell the truth, you are liberating other people to tell the truth. That's what Josephine is saying. When someone stands up and gets hauled out of a meeting and you think you're the only one, when I took Bullhorn into a breakfast with Chuck Schumer because he wouldn't debate me and got hauled out, all the people who worked in the building told me how happy they were that I did what I did. There was no way I was going to know that at the beginning. So do everyone put, I see Andrew Laverdiere is running for state legislature in Maine. I know Jeff Young has run. He's on here. I don't know if he's running for something now, but everybody, please. Okay, John Flynn is running in Connecticut, 4th Congressional District. So everyone make a note of what you see flying by in the chat. I want to thank people for coming. And I just want to say that we have to do a lot of work, because you should not presume that you will be powerless. And that means also knowing the policies that we need, which is what LaRouche was an expert in. Suppose we get into power. How do you bankrupt Wall Street? How do you establish a credit system? How do you build 42,000 miles of high-speed rail? How do you build energy, water, healthcare? All of these things, we shouldn't presume that we're not going to be in a position to do it. So it's 2 factors: fight evil with a passion, and also be prepared to do the good. We don't want to be caught flat-footed if suddenly we discover we're in charge.
Anthony Aguilar, did you have any last words? And I don't mean I better stop saying that, because the last words, that's what we're trying to prevent everybody having their last words. How about some final thoughts for the night? Let's go that direction.
I'm excited for the candidates that are running. It's an honor to be running with them in our various districts and states. And I really want to just say that, continue to take actions, whether it's taking actions in DC, taking actions locally, being involved. Every little thing that we do every day does have an impact. And thank you to everyone that was joining the panel today. And thank you to everybody that's listening. It's always great to dialogue with everyone, and take care out there. Thank you.
All right, Anthony Aguilar. Brian McGinnis. Again, as I said, everybody, make sure you go to support Brian. I mean, what happened to him is, noteworthy. And I think that, years from now, people will talk about that and see that as, a real turning point and a real wake up call for a lot of people in this country. And it's unfortunate that Brian had to suffer an injury, but, hopefully in the long run, it will be for the better. Brian McGinnis.
Mr. Nixon, thank you. In this environment, I just want to be a cheerleader, and I want to share genuinely that I do feel this instance that I was part of, God helped the words come out of my mouth. God helped me stand and throughout the situation. And God put my arm between that door and wall and made it crack, because that's the thing that gets the attention. And I feel like this was all divine. And I think everything that we were all doing has a sense of divinity to it. And that's just how I feel. And I think that, and as a new person into such a rapid growth of popularity, the emails I've received on my Facebook, or I mean my website email, are full of just amazing, genuine letters that are saying what we're all saying, that the people truly are desiring a change, and they see the corruption and they see the horrible direction we're going, and they are so hungry for change. And so I love saying this. We stand on the shoulders of giants. I just have the utmost respect for everybody on this panel, and to know and understand what you've all done. And I'm so thankful to be a part of this group, and just want to be a cheerleader and share those words and encourage that we continue doing this. And yeah, I'm so glad my wife reached out to Josephine, called her up, and it's all turned out to happen. And so this is great. And so, yeah, thank you.
All right, thanks a lot, everybody. And I think that doesn't look like, I don't think any we're going to have any other guests tonight. And certainly thank everybody for taking time out tonight.
Yeah, let me just come in here, Garland. I just
Sure.
wanted to intervene and just say I want to thank everybody again for coming on. I want to encourage people, because I know this is a national call. I know some of you are in North Carolina. I know some of you are in New York. And it's a great time to volunteer and get involved. Brian is running for Senate. Tony is running for Congress. So that's great, because if you're in North Carolina right now, you've got you can basically campaign anywhere in the state for Brian. And Tony, he's running too. And basically it's one unified campaign. You got someone on the House of Representatives and somebody in the Senate, and that's great. And if you are in New York, or if you're near New York, you can volunteer for me. And Diane Sare is running for president, so you can volunteer for her anywhere too. So if you're in New York as well, or in North Carolina, you can also volunteer for Diane Sare too. That's great, actually. So I just wanted to come on here and encourage that for everybody. The websites are, of course, in the chat again. Garland, thank you for moderating. Dennis, thank you for the introduction. And Anastasia, thank you also for moderating as well. And I just have a lot of love for every single one of you. Brian, I'm going to figure out how to get in touch with you after this, okay? And I want to thank you. Thank you all.
All right, thanks a lot, everybody. Dennis, is Dennis still there? Okay. Well, everybody, thanks a lot. Look, we're running this. I'm certainly running this on my YouTube channel. Is anybody running? We run this on any other YouTube channels, guys?
We're running on Declaring Independence and on my X account, but we'll be reposting this, and everyone else is welcome to take their excerpts and use it. We'll cut it up and make it available to everyone on here.
Wonderful. And everybody, make sure, everybody that's watching it, make sure you share this on all your social media platforms. Make sure you just grab the URL. You can click on the bottom if it's on YouTube under the share button, and you can just either share it directly or to your platforms, or of course you can just copy it and you can just paste it in and just recommend this to people. Thanks a lot, everybody. Thanks a lot. Anthony Aguilar, Jose Vega, Diane Sare, Brian McGinnis, all running for office, and keep up the good work. Let me say I'm going to end by saying one thing too. And I hear this from people, and I see it in the chat, and I understand it. Well, you can't vote your way out of here. Oh, what's the problem? You can make that argument. But whether you win or not, running is activism. Running is a part of the activism. And of course, you never know what can happen. Things are going really bad and they're going to go worse. We're going to all work, and we're going to make sure we get through this alive. We're all going to work together and make sure we get through this alive. But you still never know what could happen. How many people have run and never thought they had a chance and never thought they had a prayer, right? So you don't know what can happen. The way things are going, the way our economy is going, people are going to be really, really angry. And wouldn't it be awesome? And look, it doesn't take a lot of people to change it, to change things. It doesn't take a lot of people to get in, and if nothing else, gum up the works. You get a dozen or so people there in there, and they've got half Democrats and half Republicans, and there's 10 or 12 people in there. They can just gum up the entire works and say, no, this isn't passing. So don't give up. Let's not throw in the towel. As long as we're here, we got to keep fighting. We got to keep working. We've got to try. I would say this. There's nothing that they would like better in Congress than for everybody to just say, nobody run. Let's just let them keep doing what we're doing. But it angers them. There's a reason that they always try to get Jill Stein and people or whoever it is thrown off the ballot, because they had fear that maybe, just maybe, somebody will win and somebody will get in there and make a difference. So let's not give up. Let's not be completely feel defeated. Let's keep fighting no matter what. Thanks a lot, everybody. Share this on all your social media platforms, and we're out.
Bye.